Welcome back to the Athletes Podcast, the show that aims to educate, entertain, and ultimately bring knowledge to the next generation of athletes. Today we interviewed Jillian Brown. She is an adventure photographer who has done some absolutely ridiculous expeditions. She's an incredible human being. She's got a very inspiring story dealing with PTSD and how she's overcome that, being featured with Bell Let's Talk as one of the 5 individuals who were recognized for their work that they do as far as mental health advocacy is concerned. This is the 76th episode of the Athletes Podcast. I sincerely appreciate you guys watching, listening on whatever platform, wherever you are. Would love for you to subscribe, hit that like button, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Here we go. Jillian Brown, how are you?
Hi.
Hey,
well,
how are you?
Thank you. How are you?
There you go. Where are you right now? It's beautiful.
Okay? Oh, where am I? I'm up in the backcountry of British Columbia at Camp Myway.
Very nice. Where specifically is that?
I knew that was coming. Everybody wants to know specific details. It's like 70 kilometers roughly from a place called Lillooet. Into the back.
I know exactly where Lillooet is.
Oh, okay, there you go. So
there we go. This is my midget provincial hockey championships were held in Lillooet, British Columbia, so I'm very familiar with it. That's amazing. First want to thank you for coming on the Athletes Podcast. I really appreciate you carving out some time in your day, and I'm excited to dive into Jillian Brown and who this incredible individual is.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited that we connected. We chatted a while ago after this. I had talked with Ryan Phillips and you guys had chatted with him as well. Yeah, so I've been kind of following along hidden for a little while now.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's awesome. I'm excited because I think you possess a unique ability similar to the videographer for the Athletes Podcast, Ian Singleton, in the sense that you are able to record and create content at the same time, which is pretty damn incredible. I struggle hitting the record button.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure your videographer Ian can relate to thinking you're recording something and actually having not pressed the record button and missing some sort of amazing opportunity, or having hiked up a mountain and then realizing you have to do it again because your camera turned off or whatever it was. So
yeah, I've earned the term that I'm the guy that does that frequently. So I've just accepted that, and I'm okay with it. But it's amazing what we do for content nowadays. Hey, you got to go out, redo your whole adventure just because you forgot to hit record, hey?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I can wait. We can chat about it once if we're already live.
Dive into it. Let's go for it. I feel like you got a story you're ready to tell.
Well, where I wrote about this a little while ago about being a photographer, and in particular an adventure photographer or an expedition photographer, or one who does photojournalism of that kind of idea, and how it's really, really hard for that photographer or videographer to get, for one, funding or sponsorship like the athlete, because you're not viewed as an athlete or anything. You're viewed simply as a photographer, and there is that lost connection to the fact that the photographer or videographer is hauling all the same gear, doing the exact same feat, the exact same expedition, adventure, sport, while carrying at least 50 pounds more equipment with camera gear and video gear. It's really hard to try to explain that to somebody. Like, people just don't grasp it. Well, you're not the one you don't have the name on the accomplishment. Like, but I literally was there the whole time with 50 pounds, and you can't. The biggest thing is that videographer or photographer, they have to train almost twice as hard, because you can't slow down or impede on that athlete's feat that they're going for. If they're going for some Guinness World Record and you're trying to be along for the ride in their canoe or whatever it may be, you can't slow them down, but you still need to document, whether it be from behind and then catch up, or run ahead and then keep pace after. Yeah, it's really interesting that there's such a disconnect with that.
It's so true, and I'm laughing because over the past month, the Athletes Podcast team of Ian, Jordan, and myself have been doing challenges. So we did a Wim Hof challenge that our YouTube will probably be going up in the next couple of days. So for those listening, you should definitely check it out. But
Nice.
We did a cold exposure in Lake Ontario, jumped in. We just did the David Goggins challenge as well. That video will be going out. So but these are things that we're doing together as a team because number one, I think it's really important for us to do things together, build that confidence within one another. But Ian's hated me at times because I would be running up ahead and he's the one that's having to film and do some video stuff, and he was cursing my name under his breath for sure.
Awesome. That's hilarious. That's one of the, it's one of those things that really teaches you like serious patience to be that videographer, in also the sense of you don't have a say. You may know that something's about to go wrong, or like that you're taking the wrong way or whatever it is, but you can't say anything unless you personally just feel not safe anymore. Essentially, like you're not hired to help them navigate. You're hired to go and do a specific job, essentially. It kind of takes a certain type to be able to not just jump in there when you're like heart's racing, being like, this is so wrong right now. But I got to capture this because there's about to be some flames shooting from this person's ear when they realize how wrong this is going.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's I'm fortunate that we have this tight knit group and we have enough of an understanding and a good enough relationship where he can tell me, hey, this is a stupid idea. And I can, be humble enough to say, you know what, it probably is a stupid idea. Let's reconsider. Right. So we're fortunate that we can bounce ideas off, and we're just creating a pretty incredible platform here that I'm fortunate to be able to share stories like yourselves on. And that's where I kind of want to go with this conversation, is really dive into who Jillian Brown is and what brought you to this point here now up in northern BC. You've been portage and you go on these amazing adventures. Like, I'd love to dive into, what brought you to this point.
For sure. We can start where I grew up. I grew up in Manitoba, kind of half the year school, and then the rest of the time I was out in northwestern Ontario on a small island, where I got to grow up with my grandparents, great grandparents, my parents, of course, my brother, cousins. When you're on an island, you're surrounded by water, so you really find a love for it or a hate for it. And you're immersed in the wilds there, and northwestern Ontario is a pretty wild place, lots of wildlife, and remote wilderness. So that's where my love for both water and nature came from. And then I grew up as an athlete too. I was a soccer player, volleyball player, really just competitive and driven. And I always attributed that to the island growing up there, because there weren't kids my age. So our friends were my great grandparents and my grandparents, and they had that work ethic of hard work to be able to accomplish and earn the fun that you want to have, and to maintain a place. So it kind of gave me that drive, for sure. And studied photography through university, basically my whole life, since I got my first camera when I was 10 years old. And once I was done university, I was feeling kind of lost. I had some really bad injuries, a severe concussion, and tore my quad. And it kind of took me out of all the sports that I loved that were competitive. So I was pretty stuck, unhappy and unmotivated. And my dad had a business trip to Vancouver, and he let me tag along, and I fell in love with the mountains right away. And 2 weeks later, I had loaded up my Jeep and drove out to the mountains, and that was 2010, and I never looked back. My mom definitely still has not forgiven my dad for that trip. yeah, so that's how I ended up in BC, and then started a job as a photographer
Mm-hmm.
at a reputable dog sledding and snowmobile company, which was amazing. You get to have fresh tracks every day. You're working hard, running dogs, being outside. Um, Fell in love with dog sledding and a musher, and we started a life together. We bred a couple teams, and we started our own dog sled company in Golden, British Columbia.
Wow.
And yeah, and unfortunately, that relationship from basically the get-go was in some form abusive. And eventually, after 5.5 years of being in that, I was able to leave. But in order to leave for safety, I had to leave everything behind, and ended up homeless, living in a tent for 7 months, and kind of trying to figure out what was going on with me now that I'm somewhere safe and the adrenaline is down, and the confusion and all of the emotion sets in. Um, and yeah, that's where I end up after a month of being there and thinking I should be so happy. I'm out in nature, like all these things. I went to a river and contemplated committing suicide in the river, and immediately turned and tied my dog up and headed to a counselor. And all I was told was the term PTSD sounds like you have PTSD, not what does it stand for, what is it, what can you do for it, you should come back next week. And sent me on my merry way back to being homeless with no answers and more scared than ever. And gave me this, for one, confusion, but also this drive to figure out and reconnect to how I had gotten through when I was a young athlete with injuries. What was it that kept me going all the time? And it was that I somehow would still figure out a way to be active.
Right.
I would kick a soccer ball with the other leg. I'd do arm workout and not legs, whatever it was that I could do. I'd still go outside and get fresh air. So when I got back to my tent that day, I grabbed my dog and I just started hiking all day, let her off the leash, followed her wherever she was going. What are we following? I'm so curious. And was living completely in that present moment. And that was the first night that I had slept in probably 5 years, through the night. And started to move that trapped energy and started to add in fitness with the hikes too, squats and push-ups and things. And eventually it's now led me here to share those tools with others that came my way, the tools that I learned to move that energy and overcome.
That's why I was so excited to bring you on and to be able to share your story, because it's so unique, and I think it's worth showcasing. I mean, when people go through these experiences, they don't necessarily realize what it's going to look like on the other end. They just go through in that present moment, and they don't necessarily know, okay, if I go through these steps, or if I do these, or if I apply these methods, at the end, I'm going to have this result and it'll be okay, because everything's happening right in the moment. And I think with what we're trying to do here with the Athletes Podcast is educate the next generation of athletes. And unfortunately, with media, with the way society is nowadays, everyone wants to showcase the glamour, the glitz, the money, the fame. Because of social media, that's easy to do. Unfortunately, that is not reality, and that's not what people go through on a daily basis. And there are struggles and there are difficulties that people have to go through. And I think the nice part, or what I'm appreciative of, is the fact that you're able to come on here, share that story, and showcase the fact that you can grow and learn from these difficult times and come out on the other end a rock star. I mean, you tandem kayaked down the Colorado River, through the Grand Canyon. You're the first Canadian to paddle across America, over 6,500 kilometers on your journey in 150 days. 16 states, 23 portages on a broken foot. Like it's funny because Jordan, like 2 hours before this recording, Jordan is like, "Is she an athlete?" I'm like, "Bro, you got to do some research on her." And I kind of shared. I'm like, this woman's pretty damn incredible. I mean, you were also tell me what that experience is like. I don't want to get ahead of myself here. I get excited, but sort of explain through these wild adventures, kind of what's been that motivating factor, because you live a life of passion, which I'm so enamored by, and I feel very similar to this when I'm doing this show, actually, to be honest. So I'd love for you to kind of just dive into that more.
For sure. It's funny. I'm glad that you said I live a life of passion, because I keep thinking of this quote that I recently read, that and info that I just found out is that passion and patience are both derived from the same Latin word patai, which does
No
not
way.
mean to feel exuberant. It means to suffer.
Whoa.
And that's exactly it. You have to find your passion, to have a passion, to find patience, to have patience. It's suffering. And that's how you have growth. And that's how you figure out perseverance. I tell people my PTSD since getting out of that tent and figuring out essentially how to harness that energy, because that's all PTSD, mental health, any tantrum that a kid has, it's a buildup of energy in our nervous system. Our nervous system has no idea whether the difference between a gunshot or a tooth being pulled. It just recognizes fear and pain, and that I should be scared and I need to protect myself. And so it releases that energy, and we're not moving it. We're not getting rid of that energy. So it just is building up and building up.
Wow.
And once I started to move it, then I realized how I could harness that. And I shifted that PTSD, that diagnosis and that stigma to, I always say it's my PTSD is perseverance, trust, strength, and determination. And I just use that as fuel to achieve anything. I fully believe that we all have the strength to overcome anything that is placed in front of us. It's just that we have to believe in ourselves enough. And that belief, what can be that maybe you fail it at the first time, but you believe that you can get better and achieve it the next time. You believe that you can put in enough work or go and get the diploma, whatever it may be. So that's definitely the stem that created the ability to achieve these things that I never had in my mind. I never had plans to do anything like that. They were both the world first and the Canadian first were more the teams that had put them on believed in me too, and trusted me to help them achieve those goals.
I'm kind of just in awe of when I'm going through sifting through the stuff that you've done. It's pretty damn incredible. And, I kind of shake my head at what the human body and what people are capable of doing. And, that was what a couple weeks ago after we did that Goggins challenge, and it was like, so every 4 hours you ran 4 miles for 48 hours. And it was just a grueling experience waking up every 3 hours to go run in the pitch black. It's -20 in Ontario here where we are. Like, it was just ruthless. But the mental fortitude that came with that afterwards was something that I've never experienced before. And I think that's what, on this pamphlet that you sent, like, nothing is placed in front of us. We don't have the strength to overcome. It's just believing in ourselves enough. And it just resonated with me because we can do anything we set our minds to.
Yeah. The big thing is that we just don't want to accept that we have to be the ones to put in the work. And that goes along with all of any mental illness diagnosis, any PTSD. We just think a psychiatrist is going to fix us, or we expect a teacher to teach us. Well, you realize you're the one that has to put in the work. You want to be a top athlete. Well, you're the one that's going to have to be on that ice rink every single day, before practice, after practice, all the time. If you want to be that amazing athlete, you have to put in that work. Your coach can't do that for you. He can just tell you and show you some new skills. You're the one that has to practice them. That goes along with everything. All those tools that I was using to move that energy while I was homeless in that tent, I have done every single day since the first day that I started doing them, which was 5.5 years ago now. Every single day, the good days, the bad days, because there's still that energy that needs to be moved all the time, and no one's going to do it for me. And that's, on expeditions, all of it. That's a huge motivator. But yeah, that's
It's good. So I'm curious. There's a lot of new people that are listening to this show. We've had some pretty cool recent growth. And one of the questions that I typically ask is the misconceptions that athletes or the individuals that we have on here had prior to getting to the position that they are today. I'm curious from your perspective, growing up in Manitoba, Winnipeg specifically, to now living in northern British Columbia, what were some of the expectations that you had? Maybe, I feel like on that first business trip with your dad going to Vancouver, you had a little bit of a different experience than you're in now. What were some of those misconceptions or ideas you had previously?
So I'll maybe break this down a little bit too, to go with some of the expeditions. But honestly, I think just the way I was raised and the person that I always was, since I was 12 years old, I knew I was going to be a photographer. I just knew. I knew that was what I was supposed to be doing with my life. And
why did you know you were a photographer at 12 years old?
So I got my first camera when I was 10, as I mentioned, and we did a road trip from Toronto to Winnipeg. And I took hundreds of photos, and none of them turned out. It's like this little Crayola camera. And I swore that I would never let that happen again. I would do everything to never let that happen again. I was already in love with fine arts and like sculpting and drawing, and I had a talent for it really young, and my parents picked up on it too. I knew then that I wasn't going to let that happen. So as soon as I had the opportunity at 12 years old to start working in a darkroom, I jumped at it, and I chose specific high schools, classes, everything, just to be able to do photography for forever and learn as much as I could. That's okay, just kind of.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but I needed to get that.
That's okay.
Out. So yeah, go ahead. Continue.
Yeah, no problem. And I don't know really. I think it's from, as I mentioned before, being on that island with my family growing up, with that kind of the traditional mentality, not necessarily old school. I guess this day and age it kind of is, but where you have that hardworking work ethic to achieve things, and you appreciate things, and you don't really have expectations. You definitely don't have expectations of others, because if your roof is leaking on the island, well, nobody's coming over to fix it in the middle of a storm. So you better go do it yourself. And you're 10 years old and you're up there with your grandpa. So I think that's a big part of, I never really had a lot of expectations. I just knew that I wasn't happy in Winnipeg and I needed to do something about it. And the mountains were beautiful and inspiring, and somewhere new. And originally it was only supposed to be 6 months. And then I was going to see where I would go from there. It's our innate human nature to well, I kind of like was all over. But yeah, I stayed around in Squamish. Misconception. So I didn't really have, I try not to have a lot of expectations with that, because then you're leading yourself down a rabbit hole to potential disappointment.
For sure.
So if you just go in like thinking, well, I'm going to make the most of whatever happens here, then you're never going to be disappointed. So
I love that answer. I would love to know where your favorite place in British Columbia is. You ever spilled your drink on your pants? Watch this. Check out these shorts. The franchise short by Fabletics Men. Super stretchy, durable fabric, anti-stink. They've got 4 pockets, 2 of them zippers, and 1 fun pocket to hold your phone. The inside liner is crazy, and right now you can get 2 of them for $24 when you visit fabletics.com/BAP. Let me know what you think of them.
Oh, my favorite place in BC. That stuff, I love it here.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. We're between 2 lakes that don't freeze, so we can paddle and explore all year round. And there's huge mountains around us, and we have an outdoor gym and like everything we need. But I don't know. I love anywhere that's new to me, like anywhere that's wild and very untouched,
Right.
that we haven't somehow tampered with or destroyed in some way. I love that. I love the North in particular.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm originally from White Rock, South Surrey, British Columbia, so that's why I ask.
Okay.
I'm always curious to find out where people's favorite places are in my home province, because BC is also massive, and people don't recognize, the fact that the Lower Mainland might contain a bit of the population, but there is so much to explore, and it's some of the most beautiful landscape you will ever see in your entire life.
For sure. And it's very diverse too, from like the rainforests, the coastal rainforests down along Squamish and Vancouver Island for the most part, going into the Kootenays where it's desert and there's rattlesnakes, to the huge the Grand Mountains up by Bella Coola and Bella Bella. And then you head up and you're almost in like tundra areas when you get towards the Yukon, and marshy, which is tundra like. Marshy areas full of moose all over up there. Like it's so diverse. But that's like every province. That's a huge misconception. A year after I was homeless, to try to reconnect to all of my passions, like paddling, photography, my family, and myself, I did a road trip across the country and lived in my Jeep for 77 days with the goal of paddling in every province, all 5 Great Lakes, all the oceans, and reconnect to nature and all of these things. And the biggest misconception on that was, of course, I grew up in the prairies, so I don't really like. I mean, I like the prairies. I'm not against the prairies, but I wasn't planning to spend much time in Saskatchewan or Manitoba, in the South at least. And everyone, of course, is like, just skip Saskatchewan. It's flat. You know that, Jill. Like, just drive on through. And I ended up finding the most beauty by taking the time and slowing down and looking at things differently in Saskatchewan, and finding the most guidance through snowy owls and great horned owls in southern Saskatchewan. And if I hadn't slowed down at that time, I would have missed all of that beauty. And it was such a huge lesson for me at that time, mentally, trying to still learn about what I had been through, and finding that strength of believing in myself and not judging myself anymore. And I really kind of compared the way I was viewing myself with how we were all viewing Saskatchewan. Like, we just see the surface and the superficial side, just skip it. And there in this place that we all overlook was the most beautiful creatures and the most amazing experiences and stories that I probably have from the whole 77 days.
Wow. Well, that makes, if that wasn't a good sell for Saskatchewan, I don't know what is.
You are welcome, Saskatchewan.
It brings up a good point. This is why I love featuring Canadian athletes specifically, and Canadian individuals, because I think our country possesses such an amazing variety of landscape. Like, to your point on diversity, Toronto's the most diverse city in the world. Like, there's there's a lot that Canada has to offer, and because it's lumped in and near the United States, I think we're maybe sort of pushed to the side and forgotten about, but we have a pretty incredible country that I think we're very fortunate to live in, even during these unprecedented times. I'd love for you to
that's for sure.
Yeah, I'd love for you to dive into, you were one of 5 individuals who were recognized for Bell Let's Talk Day and for the work that you do as far as mental health is concerned. I'd love for you to dive into everything that goes into that. There's a lot of pressure, I'm sure, with, having that responsibility of being one of those 5 individuals. What comes with that? What was required? Where do you see that going moving forward? I mean, one of the things that we've stressed is the fact that mental health shouldn't be just one day out of the year that we talk about it and have conversations. Like, it should be a 365, 24/7 talk.
Yeah. I'm going to see if I can pull up what I had to say about Bell Let's Talk Day this year. So I don't really talk about that. It's called the Faces campaign. The 5 of us were the 5 most incredible people, the 4 other most incredible people I've ever met. I can say that for sure. These people have overcome some absolute crazy experiences in life to be just the most beautiful of humans I've ever met. So I absolutely adore them. Hugely amazing in the mental health advocacy world, the other 4. The actual campaign itself, I don't have nice things to say about, so I won't say any more about it, but if I can find the post that I wrote about on Bell Let's Talk Day, I'll happily read it. But yeah, I definitely agree with you on what you just said, and in particular this Bell Let's Talk Day, where they're trying to get people to go on a platform and something that is the number 1 cause of mental health in the entire world. They're promoting going on there to help mental health. Go and watch this video. Go on to all of your social media platforms and share this video and watch this video, because you watching and sharing this video and being on the weapon of mass destruction is what my partner Terrence, the Camp My Way founder, calls these devices. They want you to go on that. How messed up is that? And how am I inspired by watching somebody who is a multimillionaire traipse around in a beautiful home, eating chips, doing all of these things, while I'm here thinking I'm in the worst place, like, not necessarily me personally, but as somebody who's suffering, who's looking for help, who maybe actually has access somehow, even though they're maybe homeless and doped up on whatever they're doing. Watching that, how does that bring any sort of inspiration? What I grasped from that was that by me talking one day, what you're saying is, I'm going to be a multimillionaire, like just like a Coke commercial gives you those endorphins of subconsciously, subliminally, by getting a Coke, I might one day drive a red convertible with a beautiful blonde babe beside me.
I could not agree with more with your statement. I
have some strong words and feelings about it.
It's there was a lot of conversations around it this year, and I mean, Bell probably was in some hot water for releasing a bunch of employees the day afterwards as well. Like, we could dive into it. We could have a whole podcast on that. I feel like that, I don't want to necessarily completely bash them, but there was definitely some points of concern. And I think that's what's so difficult nowadays, is the fact that you're right. We have these social media platforms that everyone says this is a great way to spread awareness and for people to know and find out more information. When in reality, if you maybe turned off that phone or weren't so connected or weren't posting on social media and replying or needing likes to satisfy and get your dopamine hit, then you might be a bit more happier and producing more serotonin throughout the day. Like, there are so many unfortunate situations that come from this, but what I think is a positive is the fact that there are people like you who are willing to speak out, and share your true and honest opinions. And hopefully it makes a difference. I mean, I think where a nice segue would be for you to maybe give some insight or suggestions as to how specifically someone who is going through difficult times, who maybe is suffering from PTSD or another mental health illness, what you would suggest as far as some steps to take to get out of that spot.
Well, there's a few things that we do here. That I mentioned Terrence Kosakar, the founder of Camp My Way. And there's a few things with our it's not a program. We hate calling it Camp My Way program because it's a way of life. Everybody that comes up to Camp My Way just takes part in what we do every single day, which is a routine. We've been doing it for so long that it's just a ritual. But the main thing is in the morning, call it the pre-flight checklist, where you connect while you're in bed in your safe place, the place you're comfortable to close your eyes and you have trust that you're going to be okay, and go to sleep. When you wake up, before you reach over and check your likes and do all those things that you just mentioned, connect to yourself, do your pre-flight checklist, go over the plane. You're not going to fly your plane without making sure it's going to run up, right? So wiggle your toes, move your feet, your ankles, work your way up your body, every joint while you're in bed. See if there's any problems. If there is, if something hurts, if your knee hurts, well, why does it hurt? Oh, well, I banged it yesterday. Okay, do I need a doctor? Do I need some pills? Do I need a hospital? No, I think I'll be okay. Okay, we can move on now. Hips. So you've done every joint. And then the next part is your mind. You're not going to fly a plane if you're drunk, if you're not mentally sound. So you got to connect to your mind. So you do breathing. We call it 5 by 5s. 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, 5 times. And every time that your mind goes off, oh, I'm late, I got to get to work, you got to start over. So you can do all 5 sets. And that's the best way to start your day, and so easy to do. And the more and more you do it, the more you'll connect to doing it when you start to get anxious or frustrated. You need to stop. Okay, what's the problem? And go back, do your body scan, do your breaths, and work through it. And I always say, just go for a walk, because you're moving energy as soon as you go for a walk. Grab your dog, go for a walk, get some fresh air. You're going to get some exercise. You're going to move some energy, and you're going to remove yourself from whatever environment that's causing all the stress, which is the biggest thing, is that we're stuck in these environments and we don't think we can get out of them. We need to go to an environment. Pardon me?
No, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I was going to add in that having a dog to walk, my roommate got a dog, so I've been fortunate enough to be able to walk him in the mornings.
Nice.
And I see it in him, actually, more than anything, is if I don't walk him, he is a terror the rest of the day. And there is a direct correlation with, if we get a walk in the morning, we're going to have a productive day. And if we don't, both of us are in shambles. So it's a good way to, as a reminder that, hey, there are things that, when you ritualize them and when you do them frequently, they become ingrained in your body, in your system, and it adapts to it, and you start to perform better. Yeah,
for sure. It's things even on expeditions, like paddling across America in particular. Because I was moving a lot of energy every day for a long time. I stopped doing my normal morning workout and my morning routine that I had done for so many years, thinking, okay, well, I'm kind of shifting it into paddling and hiking and portaging and all these things. Well, eventually, once I ended up solo, just before I ended up solo, when I was really stressed and anxious and frustrated, to when I ended up solo on it, I realized, holy shit, the reason I'm right now super stressed out is I need to go back. As much as I'm burning energy and moving energy, doing all of this, I need more. I need to go back and do these routines. And people thought I was crazy when I've mentioned, like, I'm out paddling across 6,500 kilometers. And in the morning I get up and do a few hundred squats and sit-ups and all these things. And then I go paddling. They're like, you're crazy. Like, it has nothing to do with trying to be super fit or anything like that. It's the fact that it kept me in that space, in that mental space that I needed to be in to get through everything.
Mm-hmm. So important. And I don't think it's stressed enough. I'd love for you to maybe quickly dive into how you stay fueled up and what your nutrition looks like when you're on these expeditions. I mean, we did the 3 days worth of Goggins challenge and we were running off. Just I don't even want to talk about what we were eating, but I'd love for you to share kind of what you do for a 77-day journey. Like what are you putting in your system to stay at peak performance?
So on every expedition, there's a few definite things that I always do. Is I always have oats in the morning. Even like when I go up to Alaska for one, I know my body doesn't always transition real well when I'm changing nutrition or adapting to nutrition or diet. So I always have to start a week before I go on an expedition. And depending on the expedition, I sometimes have to change my body weight too. I did a 50-day expedition up in the north through northern Alaska and down through the Yukon and British Columbia. I knew I was going to be cold and I was not going to be eating very much because I could only carry very little food. Mm-hmm. So I put on some extra weight so that I had something to break down while I was out there for my body to use as fuel naturally, rather than it just eating away all my muscles that I had. I had some fat stores to get rid of. And same with my paddling across America. We started and it was late April. So it was pretty cold still. And we were on the ocean, the coast, and paddling up into the mountains. So I had some extra weight on at the start for that reason. And then mornings are the most important. So a bunch of oats. The quick like brown sugar oats is my go-to because it's lightweight. The sugar helps fuel you. It's still got oats and lots of fuel in those. And then I always add like flaxseed, a scoop of coconut oil, a scoop of peanut butter to everything like that. And then cricket protein. If I can bring any sort of protein powder, cricket protein is the only protein that I eat. So it's you can get it in like powder form, or you can get like cricket protein bars. And Chapul Revolution is my go-to for it. Again, my digestive system isn't always super happy, especially if you're eating a bunch of dehydrated things like oats, instant oats, and dehydrated meals, and then just a granola bar. So cricket protein is just works, and it seems to keep me feeling full and energized a lot longer. That's definitely a recommendation. And then what were we eating? So we did last year, we flipped a 400-pound tire while we were shackled in 60 pounds of chains for 75 days up 2 mountains in our backyard here. And that was still it was still oats in the mornings, and then a couple granola bars kind of thing, and then a dehydrated meal at night. And you always got to sneak in like some sort of candy somewhere, and that's just like a mental again, I've written about it in posts, like how amazing it is when somebody surprises you while you're on an expedition with like sending you a chocolate bar. You have no idea, people think I'm crazy when I tell them like I will just wait all day till like the middle of the day and I'll have one bite or like 5 M&Ms, not the whole bag. They're like, how can you not just indulge? I'm like, you don't understand how much I look forward to those 5 M&Ms a day. Like I will paddle my heart out to reach that 40-mile mark that day so that I can eat my 5 M&Ms.
It's part of that delayed gratification, right?
Yeah.
Well, Jill, I feel like I could talk for hours with you about this. I am certainly going to put it on our list when we go on AP tour number, whatever it is, to go when we go across Canada to check out Camp My Way. I'd love for you to maybe dive into if you have any upcoming expeditions, blogs, where people can find your information before we wrap up here.
For sure. So campmyway.com to learn a little bit more about the camp. And if anyone needs somebody to talk to, they can reach us through there. And then my personal Instagram is probably the best, Jillian A. Brown Photography, to hear about expeditions, read articles, posts, connect to me personally. That's probably the best one for sure.
Yeah, I highly recommend people go follow it. It's a pretty incredible page. You've got a lot of amazing stuff on there, and I get a lot of inspiration from it. No, Jill, the way we wrap up every single episode of the Athletes Podcast, I can tell you're waiting for the question is...
Yeah, everyone has a question.
What is the single biggest piece of advice that you would give to the next generation of athletes?
Whoa. Just have belief in yourself that you can do it and be willing to put in the work. And that means every aspect of your life, not just the sport that you love or the person that you care about. That's in every aspect. Just have that belief in yourself that you can overcome it, no matter how dark the moment is, and put in the work to for yourself, because only you can heal yourself, grow yourself, love yourself.
Jill, you've brightened up our Thursday. I sincerely appreciate you coming in, taking the time out of your day. I look forward to being able to connect with you further, stay in touch, follow along with your journey, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I look forward to chatting again too.
Thank you guys for listening to the 76th episode of the Athletes Podcast, or maybe watching if you were. If you haven't, go check out our YouTube video, hit that subscribe button, like it. We appreciate you being present here during this time, watching, listening to the 76th episode of the Athletes Podcast featuring Jillian Brown. Would love for you to share what your biggest insight or takeaway was from this episode. We are showcasing more and more on our social media platforms. If you have not yet, find us at the Athletes Podcast on any social media platform. We're busting out TikTok videos, Instagram reels. We're having fun, and we appreciate you being along for the ride. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.